All right, so let's jump into this deep dive today. We're really getting into how, like, all the things we do every day, how they connect with who we are on a deeper level, like maybe even to something bigger than ourselves. The sources we've got laid out here, they explore this connection, this whole relationship, especially through this ancient wisdom. It talks about action and the divine and how they work together. It's pretty fascinating stuff.
Yeah, exactly. We're trying to figure out how you can be completely involved in life, active, but at the same time be in this state of non-doership.
It sounds kind of strange, right? We'll also look at what merging with God actually means according to these texts. And a big part of that, like a really crucial part, is understanding your own true nature.
Exactly. And, for you listening, we know you want to get right to the point. We want to be efficient here. We're going to give you a clear, insightful look at these complex ideas. So should we just dive right into this whole illusion of doership thing? Let's do it. One of the most interesting things to think about here is this. You experience yourself as the one making choices, taking action. But there's this deeper level of awareness in you that's not affected by all this activity.
Hold on. That's kind of a head scratcher, right? Like, I'm doing things, but there's a part of me that's not. How does that even work?
Right. It's like when the source talks about something being created, but then it also says the creator didn't create it. Sounds contradictory, doesn't it?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it mentions something about a system based on, like, inherent qualities and actions. And then it's like, boom, the one who started it all didn't actually start it. What's the deal with that?
Exactly. And the source breaks it down by talking about two parts of us. The first one is consciousness. It describes it as unchanging, inactive. You could think of it as just pure awareness. And then you have the body-mind complex, which is like all your thoughts, feelings, and actions, the physical stuff too. It gets its sense of aliveness, its sense of being active from that underlying consciousness.
So it's like our body and mind are the ones actually doing the work, and our consciousness is just watching it all unfold, like a witness.
That's a really good way to put it. The body-mind complex is what we use to take action. But your true self, the consciousness, it's not a doer. And the source is very clear about this. Understanding this difference is what leads you to merging with God.
Wow. So this isn't about some big mystical journey or something, but about how we see ourselves at the most basic level. That's pretty powerful.
The source also mentions how we don't always see the world clearly.
Right, that's a really important point. It says you don't experience the world exactly as it is. Your perception is filtered through all sorts of stuff, your preferences, your desires, your limitations. It's like, think of it like different people watching the same movie. They can come away with completely different ideas about it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, like 10 people could watch a show, and they'll all have different takes on the characters, the story, everything. Exactly. And the source uses that same idea to talk about how we understand the divine. Because our perception is all messed up, we interpret things through our own limited view. But the people who get this idea of inaction within action, who understand that consciousness is separate from the body-mind that's doing stuff, they can see past those contradictions.
So it's about having a clearer perspective, less distorted,
Yeah.
right? And that helps us understand things more deeply.
Absolutely. And that brings us to what the source calls the conditions for being active in the world, but still being able to claim inaction. There are two main things to consider.
Okay, so let's break those down. The first one is the absence of ego. And it's really important to note here that the source isn't talking about being arrogant or anything like that.
Yeah, that's a huge difference. In this context, the absence of ego means really getting that you don't live life. Life happens to you. It's not feeling like I'm the one doing this. It doesn't matter what you're thinking or doing on the level of your body-mind, like your everyday actions.
Yeah.
If you truly know that your true self doesn't act, that's when you've let go of ego in this sense.
So even if someone looks like they're calling all the shots, inside they might have this awareness that they're not the one really in control. Interesting. So how do we actually, live with this understanding? What can we do?
Well, that's exactly what the source is getting at. It's not about what you do outwardly. It's an internal knowing, a recognizing that your true self is separate from the body-mind, which is always active. It's subtle, but really important. Okay, so the second condition for claiming inaction is the absence of motive.
Now, this one seems pretty straightforward. It's about not acting for personal gain, right? Like, you don't do things just because you want something out of it.
Yeah. Right. You're not attached to the outcome. The source says that when your actions are driven by a desire for the results, well, that creates attachment. It stops you from being able to claim inaction. But someone who doesn't have a personal stake in what happens, They're not trying to fulfill their own desires. They can truly claim inaction. They still act because that's the nature of the body-mind, but those actions don't create attachment.
Because they're not invested in the outcome.
Yeah, exactly. It's just action happening. It's not fueled by personal desires. And again, the source really emphasizes that only those who have both of these things, no ego and no personal motives, can really understand this concept of inaction with inaction.
It sounds like it really changes how you see yourself and the things you do. Okay, so let's go back to this idea of merging with God. The source has a very clear statement about it.
Oh yeah, it does. Teaching 63 says, straight up, dropping the ego is merging with God. It's not about some hard journey to a far-off place. It's a realization. It's like a fundamental shift in how you understand who you really are.
So it's not about physically transforming into something else. It's about this understanding of our true nature.
Exactly. It's realizing that your true self, your consciousness, that's separate from the acting body-mind, is already connected to God, or even one with God. This goes back to what we said before. To understand God, you have to understand yourself because deep down, they're the same.
So it's like peeling away layers of mistaken identity, all the stuff that makes us think we're just this body mind that's always doing things. We get rid of that, and then we see the truth of who we are.
Exactly. And this understanding changes how you interact with the world. The source has some specific verses that highlight this.
Right, verses 4.14 and 4.15. What's the main message there for us?
Okay, so these verses say that actions don't taint the divine. God's not driven by wanting specific outcomes. And the really important point is this. People who get this principle, they're not bound by their actions. The source even talks about ancient seekers of liberation. They acted with this understanding too.
So it's not about starving all action. It's about acting from this place of understanding and being detached.
That's it. It's about aligning your understanding with how reality actually is. It's not just some abstract philosophy. It's a way of being in the world that frees you from being tied down by your actions. This ties into your interest in the practical side of things. You can really make a difference in how you live.
Yeah, a path to freedom through understanding. That's powerful stuff. All right, so to recap what we've covered today, we looked at the difference between your consciousness, which isn't touched by action, and your body-mind complex, which is constantly active. We talked about this illusion of being the doer and how our perception can be distorted.
We also talked about those two important conditions for acting without being bound by our actions. Not having an ego, in the sense of knowing your true self doesn't act, and not having personal motives. And then we talked about how merging with God isn't something that'll happen later, but something you realize now, that your true nature is already one with the divine.
And finally, we talked about how understanding this lets you act in the world without being held back by the results, just like those ancient seekers. The source is clear that this understanding is open to everyone. You can achieve it through learning and thinking deeply about things.
Yeah, it's not about becoming a completely different person. It's about uncovering what's already true about you.
And that leads us to our final thought for today. When you really understand who you are, beyond this body mind that's always doing things but ultimately isn't the doer, you can unlock the potential to live with joy all the time. It's not a distant goal, but something possible right now, and it all comes down to self-awareness. Thank you for being with us on this deep dive.